All right, happy fight day, everybody. UFC 263 kicking off, as you can see on the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. In just over 43 minutes from right now, we got 2 title fights, 2 championship rematches, and 3 5-round fights to look forward to on the main card. We will discuss all of that and much more with all of you, because this is the People's Pre-Fight Show here on MMAfighting.com, getting you ready for UFC 263. Got a full house here. I am Mike Heck. We have the Prince of Positivity, Alex K. Lee, in the building. There he is.
Is there more MMA this week? That can't. There's too much. That can't be.
We also, on the ones and twos, E. Casey Leiden, the baddest stash in MMA.
Hey.
There he is. And joining us once again, because we need some expertise on this panel, the one, the only UFC middleweight submission record holder. The guy is everywhere. He's got a fight coming up as well, if memory serves me correctly. Mr. GM3, Gerald Mearshart. How we doing, man?
I'm great. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing great. So let the folks know when you're fighting, because I know you got something good coming. Right?
August 28th.
Against?
Oh man, I hope I don't screw up saying this. Mahmoud Muradov.
Yes.
Muradov, that's right.
If it's said phonetically,
nailed it.
Yeah.
You nailed it.
You did nail it.
Against
so
another
that's a damn good fight.
He's a victim.
That's a tough. Gerald, everyone.
Yeah.
You know, Mike and I do a matchmaking show. They were matching him up with everybody. Like anytime a middleweight won a fight in the last 3 months, everyone was like, "Oh, Muradov." So for you to draw that fight, that's a big one.
Yeah, no, it's a good fight. He's tough. Obviously now I've kind of scouted him out and watched his fights. Really good movement, good hands. I wouldn't say he's a ground fighter, but he moves well enough and defends well enough, and he's scrappy everywhere. And I saw he had 5 or 6 canceled bouts, like you said, with half the middleweight roster. So I don't know if it was a visa thing or guys kept getting hurt or whatever, but I always hear about people getting a list of names. I just assume I'm always on the list because I've never gotten a list of names before. So I pretty much got to take what they give me.
You'll be there. You'll be his Huckleberry.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. All right. So
Gerald, what
as
jersey
you
are
all
you
know,
wearing? What jersey is that?
Oh God.
What's that?
Your jersey? Are you wearing a jersey?
What jersey?
Is that a team jersey?
Yeah. No, it's a Rufus Sport jersey.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
You already talked about the Phoenix Suns, weren't you, AK?
The Milwaukee Bucks.
Oh,
Casey, the Milwaukee Bucks.
The Bucks.
Come on.
No one wants to talk about the Milwaukee Bucks right now. Nobody.
2-1.
All right, we got 40 minutes.
2-1.
We got 40 minutes until UFC 263. That's what everybody wants to talk about. I mean, unless you want to talk about the Celtics sitting at home playing golf right now, but we're not going to do that either. So let's go right to the peeps. What are they talking about as we get ready?
Let's do it.
For this massive card headlined by Israel Adesanya versus Marvin Vettori 2. Of course, we got the rematch between Davis Figueiredo and Brandon Moreno. Leon Edwards versus Nate Diaz. 5 rounds. Damian Maia versus Belal. Remember the name, Muhammad. And Paul Craig versus Jamal Hill is the main card opener, which should be a lot of fun. But what are the peeps talking about?
All right. First question. Ooh, I think it's let me blow it up. Loop.
So this is a very popular thing that I've seen today. Should Lauren Murphy versus Joanne Calderwood have been on the main card pay-per-view? A title shot against Valentina has to be on the line, plus some surprise Leon and Nate is 5 rounds still, because it was made that to help UFC 262. So, Gerald, you are the fighter here. Let's just say you are in the position of these two ladies. You have the opportunity to, with a win, fight Adesanya next. Would you prefer being on the pay-per-view main card, or would you prefer to be on ESPN before the pay-per-view actually started?
Did you say they'd fight Adesanya next?
You if this is you, if you were in these ladies' positions.
I was like, I don't think they get to fight Adesanya. That'd be kind of messed up.
No,
yeah.
No, if you in their shoes,
Yeah.
You're not fighting Shevchenko,
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, I would want to be on the main card for sure, but I think it would make sense because it's a title eliminator, but I think it comes down to, they're just picking who they think is going to get the biggest draw. And all I can, speculate at is that they think that all the other fights on the main card are going to be more of a draw than those two. And, we see it a lot, especially in MMA. definitely not always about the rankings and how good necessarily somebody is. It's more about, how marketable are you, and that's something to factor in. So could they be on the main card? I think absolutely. But, if anything, I think that's just kind of a, maybe a message to them that either they wanted them to have more viewership on the ESPN platform, or again, they thought that the other fights that are on the main card are just more marketable or more enticing than their fight from, the standpoint of people actually buying the pay-per-view for it.
Yeah, AK, what do you think? Because I think as much as I love this fight and the stakes are very high on it, you're basically battling one fight right now. Because I had a hard time believing that Damian Maia versus Belal Muhammad would not be on the main card. So basically, you're weighing out whether you put Lauren versus Jojo on the main card, or you put Jamal Hill versus Paul Craig on the main card. And I feel like just because of the heat between Craig and Hill and what has happened this week, I feel like that's like the perfect fight to open up a main card to get people excited. Because I have a feel like Murphy and Calderwood is going to be a super close fight, in my opinion. It's just going to be one of those. So do you agree with this being on the prelims, and it's not a bad spot. Dominic Cruz even said heading into the Casey Kenny fight, he was happy fighting on ESPN because more eyeballs are going to be on him. But do you think this fight should have been on the main card over any of these other fights?
Yeah, for me, there's there's always going to be a certain prestige with saying that it's a main card fight. We are in the ESPN era now, so it is different. I know, as Gerald said, a lot of fighters have mentioned before that like there's a good chance more people will see you on ESPN than might see you on the pay-per-view. Not everyone's going to purchase the pay-per-view, right? It's a huge difference. But I do wish that, because we're talking about challenges for Valentina Shevchenko, you need to do everything you can to try and build these names up, because she's a minus 1,000 favorite against like anyone that steps into the octagon with her. So if they could give them that sort of extra level of prestige, saying this is a main card fight, main card opener. 263, I think, is one we can all expect to have a pretty decent buy rate. So I do think a lot of people will have their eyes on that opener. In this case, look, Jamal Hill and Paul Craig got the bump. That's fine. I think they're expecting a second round finish in that fight, so they want to get the card off to a certain tone. So I understand that. But for me, I would have definitely had Jojo and Lauren Murphy on. But I wanted to ask Gerald, have you noticed any difference, Gerald? Because your last fight, I know it was on the prelims, but it was on ESPN, I believe, with Bartosz Stravinsky, ESPN and ESPN Plus. Have you noticed a difference between like the amount of people that like kind of come to you after one of those fights, like on ESPN? Do you feel like it's more as opposed to if you're on pay-per-view?
I haven't really noticed, but I'm not that cool yet anyway, so I don't think for me it's going to make that much of a difference, if I'm being honest. The more exposure you get is always good, but I think it's not really going to matter until you start being in like the later end of the pay-per-view card, or you're a co-main or a main event, where you get a little bit more push from the UFC, a little bit more media coverage. Maybe they do some of those little like embedded or something like that on you, and I think that kind of all ties into it. But as far as where you fight and like noticing the response afterwards, I haven't noticed any difference other than the more fights I have in the UFC, obviously, more people kind of know who I am. So, but that's about it.
Casey, let me ask you the second part of this question. He says he's surprised Leon ate his 5 rounds still because it was made that to help 262. I think every single thing about this fight is surprising. Like if you told me a year ago that Nate Diaz would be fighting Leon Edwards next, I would have laughed at you probably. But here we are getting ready for 5 rounds of these two guys getting after it. Are you surprised at all that they kept this a 5-round fight with 2 other title fights on the card?
Sorry, excuse me. No, not at all. I mean, they've had pay-per-views of 3 title fights, and that's essentially what this is, with 3 5-round fights. And both gentlemen were training for 5-round fights, and yeah, I'm completely fine with it. That's cool. I want to. Yeah. We don't get to see Nate Diaz or Leon Edwards fight that often, so more the merrier. So.
That is a very good point. Leon Edwards, for those in the betting side of things, Leon Edwards still the biggest favorite on the card. Minus 460. The comeback on Nate Diaz is plus 410. So not a ton of faith in Nate Diaz, the fighter. But again, it doesn't matter. Win or lose, his stock either rises or stays the same. And he's still going to get a big fight next.
That's not why people love Nate Diaz. They love Nate Diaz because he's Nate Diaz, not because, he's the best welterweight. I think even Nate Diaz fans know he's not the best, but people get behind him. They like him, so it doesn't matter. I think
I completely agree.
That's the magic of Nate Diaz.
Gerald,
Nate
I
Diaz
can't remember.
Sorry,
Sorry, go ahead, Mike.
Go ahead, Mike. Go ahead. No, you got it. Go ahead.
I was going to ask Gerald, I can't remember we asked you this the last time we were here. I feel like we do talk about 5-round fights a bit. How do you feel about them doing now the possibility of 5-round non-title fight, non-main event fights? I would assume, I mean, we all kind of assume you would hope there's also, you'd be able to negotiate better compensation for that. Do you know if that sort of thing is a possibility? Do you want to be in more 5-round fights if it's not for a title and if it's not a headlining card?
Well, like you said, if I'm getting 5-round fight pay, then yeah, that's fine. But otherwise, the hell no, I don't want to be there for 5 rounds. I don't have to be like, unless it's like a title eliminator or something like that, or I'm the main event. And again, if they're going to pay me more for it, then great. But I guess I could see in this case, like they were both getting ready for a 5-round fight. It's probably a title eliminator, at least actually it would be either way, because Leon wins, they're probably going to try and get him a fight after Covington gets a shot. And if Nate wins, he's definitely going to get a title shot because they got to strike while the iron's hot with that one. But I think, too, probably gives Nate the most chance to win because, both Diaz brothers tend to be really good at weathering the storm and get better down the stretch. So I think tactically for him, that's kind of an advantage. But I try not to be in there for too long. So, I don't care if I lose the first 2 rounds. I'm going to try and get the finish in the third. I don't want to, I'll just win the next 3 and get a decision. Screw that. That's way too much time. I fought one title fight and I made it to the last minute of the last round before I finished the guy. And I was like, I am never doing that stuff again. Hell no.
I think I've said this before on the show, talk about when fans go, I want this to be 5-round title fights. And I kind of said, I think I said the same thing what Gerald said, is like, you just got to pay the fighters more. It's more training time, more wear and tear on the body, more everything. So, that's why I think that's pretty much why Bellator doesn't do 5-round non-championship title fights. It's just because you got to pay them more. And fighters want more, and they deserve more if they do that. So I'm assuming Leon and Nate are getting paid, extra for.
Well, Nate is.
Nate,
yeah.
Nate's a businessman. He gets it.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you, Joseph, as always. What else we got? 30 or so minutes away. Will Marvin Vettori's anger play a role tonight, Gerald Mearshire? How do you look at this main event? Do you first of all, this whole build has been absolutely insane and wacky and fun, depending on who you are. But do you feel like Vettori is too angry heading into this fight? My neighbor across the street asked me this morning. Goes, I think Vettori's too angry. Do you agree with that sentiment? That the anger is going to play a negative factor in this fight?
I think he's at normal baseline anger levels for him. For any normal person, that's probably too much, but that's pretty par for the course for his emotional anger levels. And it was fun watching the build-up because you could tell he was trying to talk shit, but he doesn't quite know how to do it. And I don't know if it's a personality thing or a language thing or a little bit of both, but he'd do it okay for a second. And then he would just start screaming and shouting and go full roid rage mode. And it was hilarious. He doesn't know how to emotionally package everything and get the point across without screaming. That being said, I don't think it has a factor in tonight because he's been that way pretty much since I've seen anything on him fighting ever. I think it's just more noticeable because now they got the camera in his face more often. But, like I said, he'll be cool 1 minute wearing his nice silk shirts, and then all of a sudden he's just screaming at the top of his lungs because he has no other way to express his emotions. So, no, I think it's pretty standard procedure for him tonight.
Yeah, the best Marvin Vettori line of that press conference was when he started screaming something, and Israel just goes, "What did you say?" And he goes, "Get new ears." And that was his big comeback. And it's yeah. I was yeah. There you go, buddy. There you go. AK, on the flip side, how much does Vettori's anger and the heat that he's trying to bring to this fight help Adesanya? Because we saw what happened in the Costa fight. We saw the best Adesanya ever. He just steamrolled that poor guy. And it seems like a similar build, like Vettori's trying to kind of play the same game and play with that kind of fire. Do you think that helps Adesanya, like seeing Vettori like that? Do you think he can get, not under Adesanya's skin, but like over his skin to get him even more amped up for this fight?
I have to think so, right? I mean, at any time we're analyzing intangibles like that, it's kind of an inexact science. You know what I mean? We're essentially being, armchair psychologists and trying to get in these guys' heads. And there's a million other things we probably don't see that are affecting their tactics and affecting their approach. But this would be like the third time this happened if it did turn out to be a factor. Because the Whitaker fight as well, we saw he wasn't angry, but we definitely saw sort of an uncharacteristic Whitaker in his approach, right? He rushed in a lot, just like Costa did. Yoel Romero, if anyone, was maybe the most calm of all these challenges we're talking about. And I mean, that fight was terrible, but he certainly didn't rush into trouble. He was maybe too calm, if anything. Maybe he could have used a little more aggression. But there is something about Adesanya, not just his trash talk, but maybe even the way he fights, that gets these guys kind of like, I need to get in there, and I need to put the pressure on him. And who knows, maybe someday that will be the strategy to beat him at 185. I think Blachowicz at 205 had a lot of other advantages besides his demeanor, but he also, I think, was a little bit calm and was, his usual methodical, thoughtful self. So that helped him. I can't imagine Blachowicz going in there kind of in this Vettori rage mode. So yeah, I'm leaning towards if he really is Vettori, like really furious, like he's showing, I can't think that'll help him. I have to think that's to Adesanya's advantage. But I like I like Gerald's breakdown of Vettori's promo style. It's almost Al Pacino-esque. It's almost to name another famous Italian. It's at least late stage Pacino. Not Godfather 2 pre. I'm talking like 90s and on. Kind of like very calm, and then out of nowhere, like, I'll take a flamethrower out of this place, and it's just out of nowhere. And maybe that's what he's going for. Maybe he's like, again, Italian guy. Maybe he's going for a Pacino thing. So I hadn't really looked at it that way, but there is kind of, it's the surprise when the anger comes. That's kind of catching us right now, I think.
Well, I will say this, Casey Leiden, the betting community seems to be jumping on the anger train right now because some money has come in on Mr. Vettori. The line has moved down to plus 200. And the favorite line for Adesanya is minus 220. In fact, both challengers, Moreno especially, money has come in on. Moreno has gone down from like a plus 230 to a plus 162. So some people have some questions about that co-main event. But do you agree with the line? Like, do you feel like this fight's going to be competitive tonight? Like, has the build made you feel, and just the styles of the fight, like, do you feel like this fight's going to be competitive? Because I feel like most people feel like Adesanya is just going to go in there and just do work and get out of there quick.
For me?
For you?
No, I don't think it's a competitive fight. I think it's gonna be a Paulo Costa type of performance, and I think he when I see this angry Marvin Vettori, I see a nervous fighter. I mean, if this was like a consistent thing he did, like when he fought Kevin Holland, I'm gonna kill you, Kevin Holland. I'm gonna eat you alive, Kevin Holland. He just doesn't. But for some reason, he has that anger for. I think he just needs to. He has to build up that sort of courage, that confidence, and but I don't think it's gonna be enough. This feels in the boxing world, it feels kind of like a mandatory. It's not really the championship fight you wanted to see, but the way the timing is, and the champ had the fight. This is the next person in line, so that's why I kind of feel this is. And but Vettori, remarkable job of selling the fight. So I'm sure with the UFC brass, they're very happy with Marvin Vettori, no matter what happens tonight.
What do you think, Gerald? Like, when you look at this fight, how do you see it playing out? If you're Marvin Vettori, did you watch the Bellator main event last night and say, you know what Yaroslav Amosov did last night? I need to do the exact same thing.
I mean, he's gonna try to, right? But I think Casey has a point with it being similar to the Costa fight. I think Vettori might give him a little more trouble just because, he already did fight him once, and he's probably got it in his head that he's a little more comfortable in the fact that he doesn't feel like he's going to get caught or like stung with anything too bad right away. So he'll rush in a little bit and try to get a hold of him and, maybe get a takedown here or there. But yeah, it's just kind of hard to bet against a guy who looks that good at 185. You know what I mean? And, not for nothing. When he did fight Holland, yeah, he was all angry and shouting too, but even in that fight, he took him down and laid in his guard. It's not like he inflicted any real pain or used that anger to do anything out of the ordinary. He fought a smart fight, but even in doing that, it wasn't very exciting, and there wasn't a lot of damage done. And I don't think you can really go against Adesanya and not do some kind of damage. Like even on the takedowns, you got to kind of, Jan kind of bullied him and really stuck him to the mat at least and was roughing him up a little bit. I think if you just take him down, he's got good enough hips and speed and athleticism that he'll get back up. And unless you make him pay for it and slow him down a little bit, it's not going to really discourage him. Like a lot of guys get taken down, it gets in their head. For him, he's like, okay, I just got to get back up now and jab you in the face for the next, however long until you run into something. And I think that's probably more what we'll see.
All right. What else we got, Casey?
We got lots of questions. Hold on.
That's what we like to see.
Here we go. It's kind of an if.
We will have our predictions at the end, by the way.
Oh, well.
Our predictions of the big three fights. If Belal Muhammad wins, who should be his next opponent? What makes sense? I know, AK, this is on to the next one-esque, and maybe this is a question we'll have to answer tomorrow. Maybe we're giving away a spoiler here, but what sort of opponent makes sense if Belal Muhammad beats Damian Maia? Because that's a big name to add to your resume.
Let's see. Let me bring up my mystery rankings here. Well, I'll say if Leon Edwards loses to Nate Diaz, I know, the odds are right now not favoring that outcome. I still kind of want to see that one run back. I know a lot of people feel Leon kind of showed enough in the round and a bit that they had with Belal, but I could see it because I know Belal wants it. He's, of course, been calling for the rematch since, understandably. So I could see that one. I mean, I could see that one happening. I don't know if that's the best option, but I could see that one happening. Otherwise, I'm looking at like Li Jingliang, but I think he's booked, right? And I know he talked about that one before. I think he's booked. But I don't know. I think he would call again for the. It would depend. I guess it would depend what goes on with Leon. But he can't call. He can't call for that matchup obviously until that fight's resolved. But I don't know. Yeah. So that's my answer for now. Maybe campaign for the Leon fight if Leon loses.
Or
what do you think, Casey?
Well, or if Leon wins. I mean, either way, I think. I know Leon probably should get the title shot if he beats Nate, but I know there's going to be probably a him and Colby are going to be basically negotiate. The UFC is going to pit them against each other to fight against Kamaru. So depending on who the loser of those negotiations, I think maybe that person could fight Belal with a win. But either way, I think with a good dominant win tonight, I think Belal still will most likely need one, more likely two top 10 wins to get that title shot. But I think his next fight, either way, he has to win the fight. These kind of what if questions are, it could go a lot of ways. But Belal and Edwards, I think that's the way to go. I still want to see that.
Gerald, you've obviously known Mr. Muhammad for quite some time. You have shared the mats with him. You have trained with him for many, many years, and now he's in the spot. And I think for people who have followed Belal pre-UFC and seeing what he brought to the cage and what he brought to his fights, him being in the spot is not very surprising. Like, we kind of knew this day would come at some point. We saw the talent. We saw his relentlessness. And finally, like, a lot more people are seeing it because his personality is really starting to shine on social media. And he's got his show now, and he's getting a lot of buzz. But, like, seeing this guy and being close to Belal and sharing the mats with him, like, what is that like for you, seeing him finally get this opportunity, being on a main card of a big pay-per-view, taking on a legend in Damian Maia?
I love it, man. Yeah, he's just a good person. Like, I don't know how else to say it. He's a very genuine person, very kind, always looks out for others. It's really good to see, like, one of the good guys, like, get their shot and, excel, and, like, see that you don't need to, put on an act or, go complete heel just to, make your way through something and try to get something out of fighting. You can still get there based off the merits of your performance and, like, just being yourself. I remember very early on, knowing and training with Belal and seeing him on Twitter and stuff, and even in person, I was like, these got to be like the worst, corniest dad jokes I've ever heard in my life. There's no way this is ever going to be popular. and people are eating that stuff up. It blows my mind every day, but I'm so happy for him. And to your question before about who he should fight next, obviously he's my guy, so I want to see him get the title shot next. But go on a journey with me here for a second. I'm going to put on my Mike Heck conspiracy theory hat.
Whoa.
So,
Oh boy.
Buckle up.
okay, hang on. So think about this. No matter what happens, a Belal Muhammad versus Nate Diaz fight. Nate Diaz doing nothing but talking reckless shit the whole time, and Belal Muhammad being himself, just telling dad jokes and wearing Crocs all the time. It would be amazing. I don't think Nate Diaz would know how to handle it, and just the juxtaposition of those two opposites, I think, would be amazing.
That was a hell of a journey.
Oh, dang.
See, I
Hey,
planted
I'm
some
down
seeds
for
in the last
what?
Q&A you were on.
Yeah.
Nobody saw Nate Diaz versus Leon Edwards, so Nate Diaz versus Belal Muhammad, anything's possible.
Sure.
I like it.
It could happen.
Think about the face-off they would have. Think about like them trying to figure out how like Nate Diaz would want to be like all gangster, but I don't know. I don't know if that's even physically possible for the Belal, because he would make some stupid joke and it would kind of take all the air out of his sails. It'd be great.
He would like point to Nate's chest, and Nate would look down. He'd like flick his nose up. It'd be like one of those like old school
100%.
moves.
Oh,
Yeah.
no. Oh, no.
Dana White would have his arm in between, like, oh, stay away, guys.
I'll tell you what. Like, I'm not totally against the idea of Belal fighting Leon, win or lose, and the reason why is while this is not official and nobody really knows for sure, they're talking about that September pay-per-view being in London. So if for some reason, like Leon just wants to fight in London and get one more in, and Belal like has a good performance tonight and wins, I think he would do that, because he's not going to, unless he knocks Nate out in 3 seconds tonight, he's not getting the next title shot. He's going to have to wait for the winner of Usman versus Colby. I think they're going to eventually get that fight done because it's going to do really well. But if Leon just doesn't want to wait around to see like the aftermath of that and then like wait for whoever wins to recover, and if Colby wins, you know they're going to do a third fight. If you're Leon, like, do you just try to stay active and try to fight in front of your home fans? Because that's what kind of started this whole thing. You were supposed to fight Woodley, and then the pandemic shut everything down. So I wouldn't rule it out. But if he just wanted to wait for the title shot, if he wins tonight, I wouldn't blame him either. But Belal will get a big fight if he wins tonight. There's no doubt about it.
But more importantly,
ooh,
This guy.
I mean, you
right here. 100%.
I was going to say, hold on.
I mean,
Not
wait a
even
minute,
a
wait a
question.
minute.
we knew the
all-
answer.
we should all get to answer this question except for Gerald. I think let's have some integrity here. Come on now.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
Okay. Okay.
10-8, 10-8 for Gerald.
That's right.
Stop the fight. Throw the towel in, Belal.
Sorry, Belal.
This is like, it's like Lamar Odom versus Aaron Carter in a beard
stop.
match. Gerald wins this one. I'm sorry.
Belal, you have a fine beard. If you watch this later, if you watch this tomorrow, you have a fine beard.
Dude,
There you go. What else we got?
Oh my
It
God.
is good beard though.
I'm really happy you brought up the Carter Odom fight. That was amazing. I watched that about 30 times. But,
No.
Oh, it's so ridiculous.
No.
It was everything. It was everything. It was everything we could have possibly been. It couldn't have been any better, unless like he like knocked him out and put him in a cannon and just shot Aaron Carter like into the atmosphere. That's the only thing that would have made it more memorable. It was just so ridiculous. What a circus.
The least crazy part was that Chuck Liddell was in the ring. I was like, oh, that's Chuck Liddell. Like, that's not even like the weirdest part at all.
I know. It's
love
just so
celebrity.
bizarre.
I wanted that T-shirt that Chuck had, the Odom Carter fight shirt. Man,
Get it.
I know. I got it.
What else you got?
I'll DM Chuck.
14 minutes away here. Okay.
Guys, translate this one to English,
yeah.
Mike.
Yes. What do you think, Gerald? If Marvin wins, does Izzy get the immediate rematch? Now, this is his second loss in a row. I know his first loss was up at 205, lost to the champion. But if he loses again and loses the title and Vettori wins, do they just run this one right back? I mean, be big money if they did, right?
Yeah, it kind of depends on how the fight goes, right? Like, if it's real close, I would say probably do an immediate rematch because, yeah, it depends on what direction they want to go. If it's close, they could do an immediate rematch and they could, really build that up. But if they wanted to, go a different direction and say have Whitaker then fight Vettori for the title, and then they could have more of a reason to rematch Whitaker with Adesanya, and if Rob beat Vettori and then Adesanya could beat Vettori on the way back, and that could be its own standalone thing, not even for the title, and then he fights Rob again. So there's a lot of different directions. I could see him. Yeah, if you wanted to give him an immediate rematch, I could see anybody making the case for that, right? Because technically he already beat him once anyway. So, it wouldn't surprise me. But I think it kind of depends on how much they want to shake things up at middleweight and maybe get some different guys in there to get a crack at the title. Because you can always, like I said, you get, or even somebody in there fresh to get a title shot because, the more new faces you have in there, it just makes it more prestigious other than having Izzy just beat all these guys, a couple times where they lose one, even if it's close, they lose to him and come back to try again for a title fight, but they don't quite get it. Like we saw the Romero fight, and Romero had a couple chances already, right? But even after that one, it's like because either you got to go out there and try to knock him out or try to get a hold of him and possibly run into something, or you make the fight kind of boring and then nobody really wants to see it anyway. So if they wanted to give somebody else a title shot and then someone else has it for sure, they could at least make him fight once or twice on the way back. And like any fight with Izzy, even after he lost, would be a big fight still, as opposed to him just cleaning out the division and having to decide if he wants to move up eventually or not.
I know it's another matchmaking question of sorts, AK, but if Marvin does win tonight, Izzy obviously deserves an automatic rematch unless he gets starched in 10 seconds. But even then, they could, if you're going to give Zhang Weili an immediate rematch, which they could do, then there's no doubt Israel Adesanya would get an immediate rematch. But would he get one, or would they go Vettori Whitaker first?
No. Look, the first thing that came to my mind when I saw the question, I was trying to think what's the minimum amount of title defenses someone needs to have before they kind of slot into that automatic rematch spot. And then I thought about Cody Garbrandt. I'm like, oh, he got smoked in his first. That's exactly the sort of fight where we thought, well, there's no way Cody gets an immediate rematch after that. It was an exciting fight, but he had 0 defenses. He got clearly knocked out. He's not going to get a rematch. Sure enough, they booked him and TJ again right away. So there's reasons to do these things. It would be a shame if they did it at 185 because there are a lot of worthy challengers. Whitaker, yes, is taking time off, but I think he took the time off thinking, well, he did the math in his mind. This fight, he's like, Izzy's probably has time to defend again. I can take time off and be with my family and my new child, and then there'll be a title shot waiting for me near the end of the year when I decide to come back. If they do this rematch, that throws all that math off. But I do think the UFC is not overly concerned about that. I think they could use that to say, well, Robert Whitaker, you had your chance to take it then and you didn't, so we're moving on for now. We want to book this rematch. Adesanya deserves it. He's a really big star. There's a lot of heat with this rivalry. They're 1-1. I think their number one thing, I don't know if it would necessarily happen right away, but I do think their number one thing they would do is say, yeah, let's just run it back right away.
I think if Marvin Vettori actually just grinds out, 25 minutes or, wins 3 rounds or whatever, and, in a boring fight, actually, I don't think they would do the rematch. I think it's just the opposite. If it was a quick knockout, like just a flurry, maybe Izzy got dropped in the first 30 seconds, I think that's easier to sell a rematch to me. I think the longer the fight goes and the more, if it's a wrestling-based victory from Vettori, I think it's unlikely to do a rematch. Yeah. I think at the end of the day, whatever the UFC figure sells most pay-per-views, I think that's the next fight for Vettori if he wins. To be honest.
Do we have a question about the co-main event, which, by the way, is the best fight of the entire weekend? And we haven't got one question about it.
I don't think I saw any.
Here we go.
What do we got, Casey? Oh, right.
Take anything from Figgy Balls weighing in with 10 seconds to spare, or is it business as usual? See, this is a really interesting question because Figgy has had trouble with the scale. And even when he does have trouble with the scale, he comes in and just goes scorched earth against whoever he fights. But to me, he looked a little rougher than usual. I mean, when he misses weight, that's fine, but like you can't miss weight when you're the champion because bad things happen. You probably get stripped of the title. But he looked rough on that scale, Gerald. Like, did you take anything away? Did you in your mind, did you feel like Brandon Moreno's chances got a lot better seeing Davis and Figueiredo step on that scale with like less than a minute to go?
If it translates into Figueiredo not recovering as well, I think it definitely boosts Moreno's chances, especially because, not being able to put the weight back on properly. Remember too, people don't always think about this, but those last few pounds you're cutting, if you got no other fat or water to lose and stuff, and your body's all drawn out, it's going to start taking a little bit of water away from like your brain, which is, where you get people getting dizzy and you get really bad stuff happening. So if he had to go that extreme where he was really drawing himself out, that could affect his chin. That could affect, the pop on his punches and all that kind of stuff. So it definitely would give him advantage if that's the case. It could have been a timing thing where he just really cut it close and was, I know I'm going to leave X amount of weight to cut the day of or the morning of because I want to, put as much back on as quick as possible, because for that acute weight cut that last day or the, night before, whenever you start, you want to be as close as you can to the weight that you're going to walk in the cage at without really stressing your body. So obviously the bigger you are, right, the more you can cut in a day. Like I've seen guys cut, anywhere from 10 to 15 pounds during fight week, and they might even cut, almost 10 the night before or the morning before if their body's accustomed to it. So the smaller you are, can't do as much, but he could have just left a little bit more to cut the day of so he could like bounce back a little bit stronger. I could see that being the case, but again, you're not going to know that until they get in there and start figuring it out. But to your point, he looked a little bit rough, but like you said too, I haven't seen it affect his performance yet. So that's just going to be one of those things where you'll probably be able to tell in the first couple minutes, but I would hate to speculate on that until we actually see what goes on in the cage.
To me, AK, and this was even if Figueiredo like skipped and frolicked to the scale and was the first one up there, I still feel like, and I know how the first fight went. Both guys turned around on 3 weeks' notice. Both guys were done in that fifth round. Moreno was basically on one arm. Figueiredo, at least from his side and his manager's side, he was very sick the night before. I feel like the longer this goes, the more it favors Moreno anyways. But now that we add this into it, if it did get to that point where Gerald got to, I mean, the betting community has certainly jumped on Brandon Moreno here. Did your prediction change in any way seeing Figueiredo walk up there yesterday?
No. I think Figgy is of that kind of class of guys who they might not look great on the scale the day before, but on fight night, there's almost no discernible difference. Jose Aldo comes to mind. I remember Jose Aldo probably near the last couple of cuts for someone to 145. I know he's at 135 now, but he was having some real issues with the cut to 145. And there's at least a couple of fights where like the still images are so. If you like look at those still images, you're like, this is a guy on death's door, not a guy who's about to go fight in a 5-round championship fight, right? So I think Figueiredo's like that. I'm not saying it's good for him. It certainly can't be helping, but I do think he's the kind of athlete that can rebound and regain a good percentage of his strength before time comes around. So no, it wouldn't change my prediction so much. I think his cardio issues are a little overstated because, like we said, Moreno was also kind of gassed out in that last round, even taking into account the quick turnaround for both fighters, and also just kind of how fast paced the fight was. I think if this fight is that fast paced again, I think you'll see the same. You'll still see a slow fifth round. It's just as amazing as these guys are, you can only keep that up for so long. I mean, that fight was just a war for the first like 20 minutes, right? So that they had anything left, they can even stand in the fifth round is like amazing. I did want to follow up with Gerald though and ask him what's the closest, because the other thing, a part of this question is that he came in with the last 10 seconds. That was what was so scary about it. Because if you come in after, he was that close. I saw some people downplaying like, oh, he made it within the window. Who cares? He was literally 30 seconds away from going over the time. And that's a big deal. That's a big deal with the commission. They take that very seriously. So it's not like, oh, as long as he makes it within the window, we shouldn't care. Right? Again, we saw it once with Overeem, and I think he had reasons for being late, so it wasn't. But I remember when that happened, people were like, "Holy crap, is this fight canceled?" We didn't know. We didn't know what was going on. So, Gerald, what's the closest you've ever come? And this is your chance, by the way, to make an excuse, and we can erase any of these losses off your record. Did you ever feel like what's the worst that you felt like a weight cut kind of like just destroyed your performance?
Probably would have been before the UFC for sure, but even then, it doesn't matter if I've cut 10 pounds a night before fights when I was young and dumb, and I've still won. So, and I'm not going to blame any of my losses on anything other than me sucking. So it's just, it's like an invalid excuse as far as I'm concerned. You agree, you side the dotted line. It is what it is. So in the UFC, I don't think I've ever been past like number 10, and that might even be kind of far. So, and I don't know if maybe the rules in Arizona are different, but I think in Vegas, I could be wrong, but at least before, I know you could weigh in, and if you missed the first time, even if you came in late, and maybe this was another reason for doing that, again, it could be different in Arizona, but I thought the rule was you could come and weigh in, and as long as you did it within the window, if you were off, you had a chance to re-weigh in, and they would give you an additional hour. So that could be
Arizona's
another
like
reason
that,
where so he thought he was close, and he's like, let me wait up until the time, right before it ends, so I can get that additional hour, and maybe I'll have just a little bit left because we're cutting it close right now. So that could be another possibility too.
Yeah, that was a wild scene.
Smart.
Like when he walked up the stairs, that last step he took, like to the top of the steps before he got to the scale, I was like, oh boy. Like, even if he missed, there's no way the commission was going to let him go again. There's just no way they were going to give him that extra hour. He was already in pretty bad shape, but we'll see what happens. That is a very interesting fight. And
one factor, and just real quick, last thing about this fight, Jared, I want to ask you this: will the size of the cage make a difference with this fight? Because the first one was in the small apex cage. This one's going to be in the regular, 36-foot whatever octagon. Would that play a difference, you think? Or
maybe a little bit. They're small enough too, though. I don't know that it makes a huge difference.
It's not Volkov in there. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, even for me, right in the apex cage, I take a step and a half backwards, and all of a sudden I'm bumping into the cage. Like, what the hell? But again, they're active too, right? So maybe they notice it. I would think if it does affect them, it affects them a little less, and neither of them are really going to be trying to press the other guy up against the cage that much, other than to maybe like stuff some punches and get their own off, because they're pretty. Other than Figueiredo having like the power advantage and maybe just throwing bigger singular strikes, and Moreno doing a little more numbers, they're pretty similar in their styles. So I don't really see the size of the cage necessarily being too much of a factor, but maybe one of them changed up their game plan, and it could.
All right.
Best fight of the weekend, friends. Best fight of the weekend. I love it. Those two guys are just meant to fight each other as much as possible, and I'm really looking forward to it.
My attention Nestaka is about to fight 3 guys in one night, so I don't know, which is technically one fight. So we'll see about that. Best fight of the weekend.
Fair enough. I'm sure Jed Meshew will have an issue with that with Fight Circus coming up in a matter of days as well.
One more question.
All right, we are
predictions. Wait, one more question.
Sure. Yeah, good going.
Fight of the night, lock of the night. Who has the most to lose on this card? Gerald, what's your prediction for fight of the night?
It would kind of be hard to not pick Figueiredo and Moreno, but I think the only fight that has a chance, at least on the main card, would be Leon Edwards and Nate Diaz. If it goes a little bit late, because that would mean to me that most likely Nate Diaz had to weather some bigger shots, and he's going to start talking smack and coming back and slapping people and like upping the volume a little bit. So that would be really exciting. And I think another one on the I think it's on the prelims, the Drew Dober fight. I think him and Rydell is going to be a really good fight.
I love that one. AK, what's your lock of the night?
Well, I was going to say I like Drew Dober and Bradell for the fight of the night. And actually, I think Dober is my lock. I do think it's going to be a competitive fight. I just like, and by the way, all these fights, I don't feel like super comfortable with any of these. These are all, I think, really good matchups. But if I had to pick one, I like Dober's chances. I just think he's got that slight edge on Riddell. And I'll touch upon that last
lock.
I think so, dude. I don't think
it's a lock of the night.
No, but this way, I don't think any of these fights are locks. As long as he's not one fight on this card where I'm like, oh yeah, I would bet like $1,000 on. No, I think these are all really good. I think they did an amazing job, the matchmakers, with putting this card together. So, but that would be if I had to pick one. Yeah, I like Dober's chances, and I think who has a lot to lose. I gotta go, Leon, man. I think Leon's gonna hurt him so bad. I don't know. And then they're just going to ignore his win streak if he loses this one fight. And I don't know where it's going to put him in the rankings. So I'll go Leon Edwards.
Yeah, that is the only answer to that last question. It is Leon Edwards. He's got everything to lose. Nate has nothing to lose tonight. He's just going in there. He's going to make a buttload of money. And guess what? Win or lose his next fight, he's going to make 2 buttloads of money because that's just who Nate Diaz is. So he's got nothing to lose. Leon's got everything to lose tonight. Casey, what do you think? What do you have a differing opinion on any of these?
Fight of the night, Riddell, Dober. Lock of the night, Israel Adesanya. And who has the most to lose? Israel Adesanya.
Interesting.
Israel Adesanya. To me, he's on his way to becoming, Anderson Silva-esque greatness in the middleweight division right now. And losing to Marvin Vettori, yeah, Anderson Silva wouldn't lose to Marvin Vettori-esque fighter. And I just think he has the most to lose. And like I said, coming into this fight, it felt like a mandatory. And to me, Izzy has to look great tonight. If it's a competitive fight, that's almost a loss for Izzy.
All right, fair enough. All right, let's run down predictions of the 3 big fights. I believe everyone's on Adesanya here. Anyone pick a Vettori? The silence is deafening. All right. And new and still in the flyweight championship co-main event. Gerald, you got Figueiredo or Moreno tonight?
I'll go and new.
Casey.
Going Moreno.
AK.
And still, I'm going with the champ, Figgy.
I think Moreno wins the decision tonight. I think he takes him deep and gets it done. I think, and this is a tough pick because I think Figgy's got to get it done quick. If Moreno can get to the 3rd round, I think he's got a really good chance of winning tonight. And then Leon Edwards versus Nate Diaz. Anybody picking Stockton's own Nate Diaz tonight?
My heart picks Stockton's own. But if I'm throwing money out there, Leon Edwards. I have nothing against Leon. Leon's a great guy, and he has a great story. But, Nate. He's just
this
one of a guy.
It could be a very long night for Nate Diaz. I don't think he cares again, but it could be a very long night. We'll see what happens. But that's it. It's time for some fights. The Jed Meshew special, I believe, kicks things off, right?
Oh, yeah.
The heavyweights.
Yep.
Oh, I can't wait for this fight. This should be a super heavyweight fight. Why are these gentlemen cutting away? I want them to sprint like a mile and a half, do like about 100 burpees, and then I want to see these gentlemen just be so exhausted and sweaty when the fight starts. I love tired heavyweight fights so much. Oh,
yeah, that's what we're gonna get.
Very excited.
Sorry. All right. Well, we are done. Enjoy the fights. We will see you on the other side. Casey and I will join you for the press conference stream, and then no live post show tonight because guess what? Jose Youngs and the returning Sean Al-Shadi are on site. So you enjoyed the preview show. You're going to get another dose of that for the post-fight show. So we're going to have some fun tonight. For AK, for Casey, for the great Gerald Mearshart. Thank you again for joining us, sir. I am Mike Heck. We'll see you later on, everybody.
Woohoo! Dude, this song slaps.